realized like I haven't been very political this year. Some of you are like, what? No, I really have not. And this isn't even political. What's happening socially is also an opportunity for us to find a way to amplify our work, because that's what artists do. So I was just thinking, first I was just thinking like, wow, in 2025, how can one person, anywhere, but one person wreak so much havoc and pain on the rest of a world is like mind-boggling to me. And then I started thinking, well, especially maybe because we're so interconnected now through technology and information. But, I often talk about history and pulling back to have a bigger perspective, because for me, it helps me move through the anxiety and the stress of just this moment in time. And I started thinking like, actually, if you think about it contextually, even back in the old days, whatever those days were, one person could still wreak havoc. Now, the mode of transporting information went from village to village, so the fallout was much slower, but still one person can really inflict a lot of damage. And so I thought, well, nothing has really changed on planet Earth since the beginning of time, which is really quite humbling if you think about it. And those of you know, because of my climate passion, I was thinking about this in terms of, there was one person who worked in the government almost 40 years ago this June, who basically, one person decided that we weren't going to legislate climate action. And so it basically torpedoed any opportunity for us to get on top of the climate crisis. This was in 1988. So we would be 40 years ahead of where we are now in solving the problem. And he was interviewed recently, asked like, how do you feel about having been the one person that kind of like, look at the world we're inheriting? And he said, if it hadn't been me, it would have been somebody else. Which I was like, whoa, it's kind of true in a way. Also a really great way to get out of your responsibility. But so I just started thinking, okay, for me, the moral of the story is I can't control what other people billions of people that we're sharing the planet with, we cannot control. We just can't control it. And the more I try to control it, or we silo ourselves by going onto our platforms on social media and shouting out to our, cohort, which maybe alleviates the fear and anxiety we have around things, but is still really not a solution and is actually maybe another form of control. I just thought, okay, all I can do is try to find a different way to channel the energy that would go to control to something that's more uplifting. So I always come back to art and telling stories. And then I started thinking this weekend because I was reading a lot about a lot of the scientists coming out now around AI. Also, we already knew this was coming, but now they're really talking about, the challenges that it's presenting. And I thought, well, what's fascinating about that is not only just the moral and ethical implications, but also the existential and spiritual implications of living in a world that we're sharing with artificial intelligence that will become a sentient being and have consciousness, and then also become superior in intellect than human beings. So where does that put my faith? Where does that put me as a human being in terms of consciousness meeting alien intelligence? And then again, I thought, well, wow, I wonder if that's what Neanderthals felt and saw when they met us 300,000 years ago. Neanderthal, the only people on, well, it's a hominid, but the only hominid on planet Earth, and then all of a sudden they met us, Homo sapiens. And did they think the same thing about us that we think about AI? Oh, wow. Who are you? What are you going to do to me? Well, you know how it went for Neanderthals. They're not around anymore. Okay, so I thought, well, since time began, people have been struggling with what we're talking about now. Different technology, different challenges, and they put it into their work. Instead of controlling it, how do you be curious about it? Find a way to express your feelings about it. I started thinking about the Greeks telling stories when there was a solar eclipse, And they interpreted it because they didn't have science to understand what that meant back then. They interpreted that as the end of the world. They would put a play up, working through their feelings around the end of the world. When Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, it was partly in response to a volcanic eruption in Indonesia. And it basically was called the Year of Darkness. It pitched all of Europe into darkness. And so it was, Tambora was the name of the volcanic eruption. And so she wrote her feelings about lots of things into a piece. If you look through history, that's what artists do. So that's just what I'm sitting in, working through my feelings around, and encourage us to like create space for that. Nothing really new is happening here, although it feels really scary and overwhelming sometimes. And how do we create more space to like put it in the work, explore it in the work? You don't have to be a writer to do it. You're a feeling being, so put your feelings in the work. Or maybe you will be inspired to write something or get involved with something that's trying to tackle the curiosity of what it means to be a human in this century. So that's the thing that I just keep coming back to, and I just see what tomorrow brings. Okay.